This is
The Grove Podcast.
Hello, my name is Tabs, and welcome to episode 196 of the Grove Podcast. Now, thank you for listening, and I hope you're all doing very well. And sorry, no pod recently. I've been away on my holidays with the family, and pre-season games haven't exactly been the most exhilarating or eventful. So, meaning that I had to get, they weren't good enough, so I had to get off my sunbed to hit the microphone and record a pod. But the good news is that we have now got a shed load of stuff to talk about as the preseason games are over. The transfer rumour has gone a bit crazy, and we have the charity Community Shield, depending on your vintage, against Man City on Sunday to look forward to. And joining me today to chat about all of that is Jamie. Jamie, how are you doing? Long time no speak. And do you think the climate change people might have a point? And how's your first summer on the South Coast been?
It's been delightful in lots of respects, but my God, it has been intense. It has been incredibly intense. And it's a hell of a summer to have decided to do 5 festivals, and just the dehydration's been going on a lot. Nice.
It's actually, I've just come back from near Venice and we're staying like a sort of a beach resort near Venice and stuff like that. And it's actually hotter. We thought it was really hot there, and it was like 34 or something like that. And we come back to London, and it's like, oh my God, it's like 38.
It's insane. Is it? I couldn't believe it today, because today I've been chained to the desk all day, and about 5 o'clock I went out, and it was the way that when I opened the door, it just got that blast like you get when you get off the plane, isn't it? When you go, just went, whoo. It's like, okay, yeah, that's interesting.
And then we had a 2-hour journey back from Stansted because there was an unfortunate accident on the M11 and yada. But there we go. That's such is life. So pre-season is done. Even though the Charity Shield is still pre-season, I don't really consider it to be. The pre-season stuff is sort of a bit separate. But yeah. We beat Girona 4-1. We lost to Betis 3-1. We lost to Dortmund 3-2, and we drew 1-1 with Como. A couple of penalty shootouts thrown in for a bit of fun. Did you have any? So look, we're not going to go game by game and blah 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 any of that, but we're going to just.
Thank God for that. I didn't watch a single one live.
No, well, I missed the last 2 just because I was having too much fun on a gondola in Venice. But yeah, from what you have seen and what you garnered, any particular highlights or lowlights from the pre-season that sort of stood out to you in terms of the games that we played and the players that have played?
Well, it's one of those interesting pre-seasons, isn't it? Because it comes off the tails of like the longest World Cup of all time, in which the vast majority of our squad's been involved. So obviously lots of kids playing, which is nice to see. I quite enjoyed watching the little bits and bobs that I've seen of Marley Salmon, and I think Dowman's looked really good as well. So that's been fun. But otherwise, yes, it feels a bit odd to me. It also feels odd that have we played Barnet?
We might have done one of those. What it is because I think
it's not pre-season if we don't play Boreham Wood and Barnet. They're the 2 teams you must play every season.
We did a behind closed doors one. I think it might even been Milton Keynes or MK Dons or something like that. So Tzolis scored. It was 3-0. But yeah, so no, we didn't do the usual North London.
I think Boreham Wood and Barnet we might have stopped doing it for years as well. I just haven't really noticed. But either way,
I think the under 23s or the under 21s do that game now.
Yeah. Yes, I think the Boreham Wood one at least they do, don't they? Yeah. So that's So it's been I've taken note of a couple of the games, and we've looked perfectly fine. And you can't draw any conclusions when you're sending out the kind of sides that we are in pre-season. I just don't think you can, especially because. And I think more so than at any time at all, when you're a winning beast, when you're playing games that don't matter, you just don't see the real team anyway. So even if you'd have put out kind of the starting 11 that you'd expect to see against Man City halfway through the season, you're not necessarily going to see them play the football they're going to play against Man City halfway through the season, are you? So it's been a little bit subdued for me. Probably the same as for you. It's just kind of I've been taking note, watching the scores, watch the highlights back later, and that's about it really. Lovely to see Cesc Fabregas back at the Arsenal though. That's for me. I know opinions are divided on the matter.
No, I'm a
For
fan.
Me, I will always adore Cesc Fabregas, and I've had a lot of time for his post-match interview as well, talking about the Arsenal, and I would absolutely love to see him back at the Arsenal one day. It's like it's a huge thing for me.
You wouldn't be surprised if look, he dressed like Arteta yesterday, so you wouldn't be surprised if he was on the other he was on the other side of the dugout at some point. And he seems to be an intelligent manager. I've seen a few interviews with him and stuff like that, and he seems to sort of I think I like what he says when he's saying it. And look, football, and we'll get onto this type of stuff later. Football's a business. Certain players will go do certain things and stuff like that, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and some players conduct themselves better than others, and circumstances dictate. And with him, he's no RVP. Put it like that, in terms of that sort of stuff, or
like RVP still as well.
Well, but he comes across as a bit of an arse and stuff like that. But yeah, there's people that have left and gone stuff, and like Adebayor or stuff like that. But he played for Chelsea and he went to Barca and stuff like that. But I could sort of forgive him some of those things, and people say a lot of stuff. You shoved a microphone in front of you so many times as a footballer that you're going to say something stupid every now and again. I'm all good with Cesc. So look, do you not?
Don't need to be a footballer for that, mate.
Well, me and you here with a microphone in front of us can vouch for talking shit a lot of the time. So there we go. So do you not have? There are all the caveats and the context about it being pre-season. I mean, some of the times, like maybe before the Betis game, we might have done training in the morning, so we looked leggy in the evening. The opposition were further ahead as far as Betis and Dortmund are concerned in terms of their preparation. So the contrast between just 10%, 20% fitter, can have an issue. But do you see any concerns around, maybe defensively? I mean, we're giving up. How many? 3 against Betis. 3 against Dortmund. Our right hand side of defence. We're going to be doing without Saliba for a while. He's having a rest and recuperating. Who knows when he's going to be back? Timber, we're not going to see, I don't think, until after the international break. And even with both of those, they're going to have to be eased back in and stuff like that. So it's going to be a while before they're fit and firing. So is it all contextualized? Is pre-season all about fitness, or can you? I'm not trying to find something, but does it bring any concern in terms of the season coming ahead?
How did you feel about our defence last season?
Well, it was the best defence in well, it was what set us up for the rest of the league, because hadn't they not done what they did at the early part of the season, it would have made it a lot harder second part, because you could see the contrast between, we were worrying about an Eddie Nketiah glancing header as a shot on target. That was our biggest concern.
So I mean, bearing in mind that we conceded 2 to Newcastle, who didn't have most of their first team, including Isaac, who at the time was their only goal scorer. We conceded 3 to Villarreal on the 6th of August last season, like literally just before the new season. And we lost 1-0 to Tottenham. We went and won the league and got to the Champions League final, and were only beaten in 2 competitions by City. Who gives a... Oh, well, no, sorry, in 1 competition. I'm getting one of them very wrong. I'll try not to remember the FA Cup. But in all, I just don't think it matters that much at all. It really doesn't. I think it's about fitness. It's about getting people back. It's about getting the camp together and getting people used to being together again, especially post World Cup. I think a lot of teams in the Premier League, because they are dominated from top to bottom, really, with players who went to the World Cup as well. You'd be hard pushed to find anybody, in the top half that didn't lose, their ideal first 11 of all of the qualified players. I think everybody's going to be a bit leggy start of this season for a start. A few teams are dealing with new managers, have got new regimes to put in place, and haven't had a great deal of time to do it because of that World Cup. We're in a position where we're starting from a fantastic position of strength, being the best team in the league. We've been well bedded in. We've been doing this for years now. But at the same time, it's probably a bit of a difficult pre-season for us. We've got players who went very far in the World Cup specifically that are coming back very, very late, and who just haven't had a rest in a long time, been playing intense. So, no doubt Mikel's had to try a few new combinations over the summer, most of which we won't see most of the season, but some of which we will. And fingers crossed, he still has the time that he needs to be able to put together the team that we need for the first most meaningful game that we have of the season, which is not very far into it, right? Chelsea is not far away. But yeah, I don't read into it too much. What about yourself?
No, I mean, no, you're right. I think our attack wasn't particularly firing, and our defence wasn't particularly firing as well. But yeah, I'm happy with all the context. But also, I think the biggest thing is that they don't have the likes of Saka there, no Rice, in there, like a lot of your primary players, no Raya there. I guess I think maybe it's going to be a concern for the season and see how, and we'll talk about transfers later, how we plug it. That right hand side will be a concern, and he played Meslier and White a lot of the time, who are going to be our right centre back and our right back for, I would say, the opening 5 games of the season, and so you sort of you just want to see that maybe being a bit tighter. But then again, it's 45 minutes over a few games without the best goalkeeper, without the best midfielders. So no, I can contextualize it, and in the end, I'm not overly concerned. You're right. Preseason is all about fitness. It's all about getting ready. Do you think we'll be ready? I mean, I'm not taking into account the Charity Shield, and we'll talk about Charity Shield. But do you think we will be ready for Coventry, or do you think even going into the first 5 games of the season, when we've got Coventry, Villa, Chelsea, Brighton, Sunderland, or Sunderland, Brighton, whichever order, I don't think from the first match day, I don't think we will be ready. I still think we're going to be slightly undercooked going into that.
But do you think Chelsea will be ready as well? Like, do you think Coventry are ready for the step up to the Premier League when they've not really recruited barely anybody whatsoever, and they're coming up with a squad that, I really like Cov. I really like what's happened at Cov. I like the manager. I know, unbelievably, wouldn't have said that 20 years ago, but I like the manager. I like what he does as a manager. And they're a good side, and don't get me wrong, they could turn us over if we're not good enough. That's the nature of the Premier League, and that's the nature of, Coventry could have done that when they're in the Championship to the right team, and did do to several teams, but I look at that game and go, well, I think it's quite a kind fixture list for us, to be completely honest. I think the only real game that has potential significance, all results have significance in the Premier League, of course. But the only real game that is you give a leg up to a rival is the Chelsea game. And that's what I'd worry about mostly, is probably the Chelsea game. And
luckily it's at home. So that's
it's at home, which is brilliant because they're shite at our place. That's great. To be honest, they're shite at their place most of the time as well, but they're really shite at our place. And Frank Lampard was really shit at our place too, but he's not with them anymore. It's a shame. But yeah, we'll deal with Chelsea. I think we'll just deal with Chelsea because we should do. And moving on to the other teams in that fixture list. Yeah, it's a couple of difficult games, but again, even a Sunderland, even a Brighton, they're again dealing with the fact they've got a short pre-season, and they're dealing with their own issues. Their new arrivals, some of their better players having left, all of that kind of stuff. So, I honestly think we'll be as ready as we can be, and I think that we're a good enough side and we're well drilled enough, we're competitive enough, and that's the key bit. We're competitive enough and we're proud enough that we will be going into that season a little bit like. And I feel it might be a little bit like your old Man United to a certain extent. We might be a bit leggy. We might not look great. We'll probably get just enough results, and then we'll look to power through the after a couple of months and hit a bit of stride. And I think maybe that's something as well. I kind of feel like there's been a mindset shift for me, at least anyway, that post winning the Premier League now finally, I think that's just what happens to players when they're in those squads. They become that bit more relentless. They become that they have that ability to be able to up and down 10% at certain times when it's needed, when it's necessary. And I think that's also the age profile of the players too. The majority of the team now is really starting to peak, right? The vast majority, the core of that side is 24 years to 28 years old, with a few people at either end of that. And I just feel like this is a squad now that's built to be able to go, look, regardless of preparation, we're professionals. We're going to turn up. We'll get the job done. And over the course of a season, I'm not worried about them. It's horrible to not have Saliba. It's horrible to not have Timber. Horrible to not have Saliba for an extended period. But look, we've got to deal with it, It's not making me not predict every single one of those to be a positive result for the Arsenal. Because from the outset, if I ask you now, even without a Saliba and a Timber, do you reckon we're getting a positive result in all those games? I think you do say yes.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, look, I think you're right, and yeah, all the other teams in the Premier League, will be in the same position, and or if they're not, they're the lesser teams when they've got less players on international duty and stuff like that. So I think everyone's going to find up until the international break, and I think there'll be some odd results. It's sort of like a mini season, and he said I like your point about don't give a leg up to your rivals. And stuff like that. But I think there will be some odd results in there because, again, players still coming back. I think the key thing in the first 5 games is not to risk players so that impacts their fitness for the rest of the season. And you've got to be a real fine balance on how you manage that. But I also do think you need to reset expectations a little bit. Normally you'd say, okay, those games, you're looking for 12 points, something like that. Maybe losing away to Villa it wouldn't be a shock. So Brighton and Sunderland are not easy places to go to, and it depends a lot on the margins. We should. But I think we may need to reset our expectations, and I would think 9-10 points, just as long as we beat Chelsea, I think we'll be fine. I think that sets us up fine, sort of thing there. So I think just people need to be patient with those first 5 games to understand it. Just as I said, as long as we beat Chelsea, get 9-10 points on the board, and then that sets us up for the rest of the season there afterwards. That's the way I would see it.
Yeah, I broadly agree, 100%. You got to, and as I say, that's where I think you get a little bit like you look at the Uniteds, you look at even City did it a bunch of times under Guardiola, slower starts, sort of we're easing our way back in, extended time off for certain players, a bit of like, shaking off the rust, but we've been here before, don't worry, we'll get the monkey off our back. And I think that's where we're headed towards. It's almost what you aspire to a little bit, because you can't do everything at 100% intensity for year on end. Doesn't work. Klopp, for a reason, it didn't really, kind of work constantly for him, as great as his successes were in the highs. The same goes for Jose Mourinho, right? There's only so many years that you can do the 1000% intensity that he came up with. And there's other examples that I can't think of right now, but even Slot might be to a certain degree, right? So I don't know. I think if we take a little while to shake off the rust and look a bit unconvincing, but get just enough results, I'll be happy as Larry. Like, that's cool. I've not got a problem with that. And it'll be, we have brought in a couple of reinforcements at the end of the day. Tzolis does look, I think he looks very Trossardy, funnily enough. Maybe a little less magic, but probably a little bit more clinical, which I think is an interesting trade-off. I think Guimaraes is obviously a top-class reinforcement, but also, like a new signing, Mikel Merino's back, and Miles Lewis-Skelly is now a midfielder. So if you look at in comparison to the start of last season, at least anyway, you could almost say that's kind of three new bodies to an extent with MLS there. Nobody significant disappearing apart from Trossard, who's got a direct replacement in there, and then obviously in comparison to the end of last season, having Mikel back. I think they're all positives to look at as well.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, if you were to say no more signings, but the squad that we have stays fit, that's still a bloody good team. And look, we'll talk in other pods about other clubs, new players, they're in transition, new managers and stuff. Maybe we look the most settled, the most better. If we can keep that core of primary players, they said like Havertz, if he's fit, that's because we're without him for the first half of the season, like we're out Merino for the second half of the season. You keep them both fit, they're great. If we can get Saka, he seems to be it seemed to like the latter part of the World Cup was actually beneficial for him. Ødegaard, the World Cup did him a world of good. I think Marino did a world of good. Havertz did him the world of good. So actually, a lot of people complain about the fatigue from the World Cup, and there is obviously like the likes of Rice that I could do with another 3 weeks off. He just can't help himself.
Rice is very much the exception to all of that, isn't it?
but he'd be so fidgety. He'd just burn up all the energy just sitting there saying, "I fucking got to go and kick a football."
But Rice is ultimately sort of, and this, don't get me wrong, Declan Rice is in some respects irreplaceable because of just how good he is. He is, for me, pound for pound, like the top 3 in the world in central midfield. But to be able to go, we've brought Bruno Guimaraes in, who does very similar stuff, and to a certain extent has a little bit, I think a really, really similar player, excels in a couple of places that Rice is maybe not the absolute most excellent as well. And to be able to field him, fucking job's a good one. That's fantastic. And if you look at who we've got available for midfield on day one, Mikel Merino, Zubimendi, MLS, and Guimaraes. I mean, that's absolutely staggering. So I have absolutely no concerns really about Declan Rice. I think he should be able to get his rest now. I think if anything, the only concern will be exactly as you feel, the itchy feet and wanting to get involved. He's going to need to be told at times, like, we're easing you back.
Sit down.
Right? And you're playing a little bit less and so on. I don't know how realistic and whether that's going to happen, but it feels like it should be the way, right? So yeah, I genuinely think, defence is the place where you worry player for player. I worry less about, I know people have talked about the right wing. I think obviously there's Dowman there. Madueke is probably in a better position to be able to fill in more quickly than Saka. I'm always not as concerned, especially with not what that initial fixture list is like. Wait for Saka to come back, I think would be golden, And Tzolis seems to be a player that fits in reasonably well, and will only get better. But I do worry a bit. I do worry obviously about, right centre back and right back. Of course you would. When you're going from here to even just a notch below, it feels scary. But I think this is just where you expect everybody else to pull their weight and be able to drive the team and you get it done, right? I mean, Meslier, when he stepped in for Saliba last season at the start of the year for a few games, we were absolutely, we were proclaiming him as somebody that was going to be pushing people for a centre back spot at some point, right? I mean, little bit, people got a bit excited, but nonetheless, he is that good. He is very, very, very good. He's good enough to go and, he could easily go and start for Chelsea amongst their 17 different centre-halves that they've got in that squad, quite easily. I think you could put him in the Chelsea squad right now, and you're not telling me that Lacroix is that much better than him, So I would quite happily, bring Meslier into that side, and Ben White looks like he's returning to a bit of old Ben White, and he's reliable. And if he gets helped out by his man on the right, happy days. We should be fine, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on Guimaraes and Meslier and how we maybe deal with right centre back, right back. Yeah, when we get to the transfers. But yeah, I know you mentioned Tzolis, and my highlights. I think he was my number one highlight from pre-season. He looks the most ready out of everyone, and maybe he looks really good, and maybe we're developing a star rather than buying the finished article. But he's good with both feet. He's good with set pieces. His set piece delivery is up there. His corners, his free kicks, can take a decent pen. He's like slotted his one last night away superbly. He can go inside. He can go outside. He said good with both feet. I think he's got 1 goal, 2 assists to his name in pre-season, and yeah, he just looks ready. And I think if he can churn out consistency, be there, provide, just have anywhere near the numbers that he got in Belgium, then I think he'll do really well. And look, we're thinking very.
Gets in Belgium, he's getting Player of the Year.
He's getting Ballon d'Or. But you know what I mean. If he gets
near Mohamed Salah levels of production in the Premier League from Christian Tzolis,
I don't know, but he does look phased by it. He's a bit of a unit as well. So no, I think that he looks ready to go. It's his spot, for now, and he looks ready to go. I think he was definitely a highlight for me. I think Ben White. I think it's good to see him back playing. Despite his knee strap, we're going to need him. He was one of these players that potentially was not quite surplus requirements, but we would happily let go at, were it not for the Saliba injury, and then we bring in another right back in place if Timber wasn't so, but we're going to need him. He may have lost a little bit of something defensively, but he's still good. He's still got a decent football brain, but I think he's great.
It'll be fine. It'd be absolutely fine. I think a few games under his belt, and Ben White is good as gold. And I think he was last season when he picked up his injury, which is horrible because he just played his way back into a bit of form, right? And I do think Ben White's one of those guys that is that kind of animal. He needs to be. It's difficult to have him as a backup in a way because to be at the level he needs to be at, he needs to play consistently. And if you're using him as a backup, that's not going to be a thing, is it? But he has a nice little run of pre-season. He has the COV game, and then he hopefully goes up against slightly tougher tests from the other sides in decent form. And Ben White in decent form, even a notch below what he was at his best for us. You saw him moving from like an 8 to a 7. You know what I mean? I'm confident. I'm all right with that.
And that the other person that's not surprised me, but and we're talking about backups and stuff like that. Meslier, our new third choice, I think now likely second choice goalkeeper. He did everything that he needed to do. He made some really good saves. I think he's played himself into number 2 spot. Especially compared to Kepa, if we talk about lowlights, he's been the whipping boy, I think, of pre-season. Look, I have quite low expectations of reserve keeper, especially when they're up against the number one or one of the best goalkeepers in the world. It doesn't matter who you have; they're always going to be substandard. What can you do? You can't have 2 top quality first choice goalkeeper. Now you can have 2 equivalent. So like Tottenham, I think they're 2 goalkeepers.
We've had 2 equivalents. We had Manuel Almunia at the same time as having Ospina. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay, but you can have 2 shit goalkeepers. Okay, you can have 2 shit goalkeepers. But what you can't do is have one of the best in the world and then the second best in the world. And so I don't get too het up about it because hopefully you never have to use them, and the only reason they're there is to give minutes to the other team, and then you expect, well, because they're not as good as you, but they are going to make mistakes, because also it's the worst position, because you can give someone 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So if you're a backup, you can give them that. As a goalkeeper, you're either playing or you're going to be not playing, and you're going to be rusty. So if you're rusty, you're going to make mistakes, stupid ones, whatever. And so I don't get frustrated, but if you've seen what Meslier's done versus Kepa, I'd say, well, sorry, Kepa, Meslier's number 2 because he's just looked a bit more competent if you needed to rely on someone.
I mean, he's a fine goalkeeper, Meslier. He did well when he was at Leeds for a long time, and then unfortunately he's had a real crisis of confidence over the last couple of seasons. He got hung out to dry a couple of times, and it really hurt him. But he's a good goalkeeper. He had in his first season in the Premier League, he was widely renowned as a wow. Look at this young guy who's signed from Lorient, who was well rated at Lorient as well, but like is looking like one of the best young goalkeepers around at the moment. So it seems like an intelligent signing. It's somebody else to be there. As you say, hopefully you don't see either of them. One of them's going to play in the Cup. I hope that neither of them are going to play in a Cup final.
No, it's okay. I think we might have learned our lesson from last year, but we'll see. And then the other low light is, look, I don't want to be down on Arsenal players, but I hope we never see Vieira, Jesus or Nelson again in an Arsenal shirt playing meaningful minutes, because look, they were necessary to make up the numbers because we needed to, and but now
we'll see Jesus. I reckon we'll see Jesus. I can't see it with Vieira. I can't see it with unless we get really desperate on the right. I can't see it with Vieira. I can't see it with Nelson. I don't know. Nelson has got that weird thing where he does just get a few Arsenal games every 3 years, doesn't he? It's so incredibly hard to remember. Right? Reece Nelson played for Arsene Wenger.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Reece Nelson played under Arsene Wenger. That's when he made his debut. Like, that is absolutely insane to me when I think about that now. Like, how far 2017 was a very, very, very long time ago now. And yeah, he continues to just every so often get a little spell, doesn't he? But I think he is off to West Ham. I think is almost the done deal.
Well, that's it. But that's maybe a loan. Just sell him. Just whatever. But it's the 100k a week. It's the wages that we're paying. That's the issue with a lot of our ability to transfer offload people. He's on 100k a week, which for us, it sounds normal, but that is not a normal wage amongst multi, and to be in the championship. You sell him. I could imagine, because we still got 1 year, and I think we've got an option. If we only loan him, we will put in the option so we can try and sell him to get some.
But he keeps going places and being shit. This is the problem. And then he had that one spell with us where he looked really good for a couple of months, and it was like, okay, I can get behind an extension here. Let's see how he goes. But it is what it is. If he's going to keep going places on loan and being shite, then you're not going to sell him.
No, true. And look, Vieira, I think Hamburg do want him. He played really well for them. I scored 9 goals for them, number of assists. Hamburg like him. But if they want to pay, I think 17 million euros that we want for him, or 16, that will be their highest ever transfer fee, or near enough to their highest ever transfer fee. So I think they're holding out till the last possible minute. And he looks so disinterested. Playing, he looks like wafer thin, looks so disinterested. He did this one thing against Dortmund where he tried to score from the halfway line. It's like, oh come on, okay, look again. Just it's time to move on. Time to move him on, and I think we just take whatever we can. And I said about wages, the biggest issue with Jesus, he's on 250k a week, and not many clubs pay anyone 250k a week, so he's got to think, I can't just be sitting here waiting for my English passport. I need to go, just play some football. Apparently Napoli are interested. Lukaku goes to the retirement home in Fenerbahce, and somehow we take again. Just my thing is, on all these 3 players, take whatever you get. It's not about being good at selling, because if no one buys them because they are your unwanted goods, just go get the wages off the books, get them out of the club, get their careers back on track somewhere else.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so there we go. So one good stat, I think, as you were talking about last season, is that every time, now where is this stat? This is some stupid stat. There we go. Every time Arsenal have lost a pre-season game at the Emirates 3-2 against a European team who traditionally play in yellow, and our second goal was a penalty, we've gone on to win the league. So Villarreal last year, we lost 3-2 and the second goal was a penalty.
Jesus Christ.
This year we did the same for Dortmund, so what an omen.
I want to hear that you got that from somebody on Twitter at least. And
I did, Richard on Twitter. And highlights, and this leads into the transfer chat, and we'll talk about it. So another couple of highlights is that I think, look, we needed some good minutes for the likes of MLS and Nwaneri. They both played a lot of pre-season minutes. Nwaneri looked serious. I mean, he always looks bloody serious, but he's a moody fucker. But he just seemed to be, a lot of good, worked hard, a lot of good off the ball work. He looked busy, wanting to get involved. MLS, I think, he was playing a holding midfielder number 6, which isn't his role, but again, looked busy, wanted to get involved. Important minutes. Seems like yesterday he was trying to send a message, made lots of gestures after scoring his goal, scored a nice goal. But yeah, so where do you stand? So the news came out, a couple of days ago. It was a crazy couple of days, actually. We'll get on to, idiots like Romero and Neto in a second. But, there was a report a couple of weeks back about MLS being offered to Man United. And then I can't remember, it was Monday, Tuesday this week. I've lost count what day we're on. I think Tom Canton and Gunner Blog were reporting that he'd been offered to Chelsea or offered to Man United, and it's a bit odd. And then also we're all thinking, okay, if we're going to have to cash in on someone from Hale End, it's like to be Nwaneri and stuff like that because he seems to be the easiest one of the choice. But I don't know, where do you stand on all this, on the rumours? Is it just business? Is it about winning? How much does it matter if we keep talent like MLS or Nwaneri? If selling them means we win lots of shit, where do you stand on all that?
I think in MLS individually would be incredibly disappointing, right? It'd be an absolute heartbreaker for me, because I think he's on an upwards trajectory. We loved what we saw from him the end of last season, and it feels like, to me, it feels like a no-brainer that you see where it goes with him. But Nwaneri, on the other hand, I have like a very different opinion on that. I think, on the other hand, he never convinced me quite as much. He's in they're both in congested parts of the park to a certain degree, but I think specifically Nwaneri, it seems that both he and the club really believe that he's a number 10 more so than a wide player, which if they do, then, that's a difficult spot to be at the moment. And I don't think he shows that he influences games anywhere near enough to be able to play number 10. That's always been my issue. And when he played wide in place of Saka, I really liked what he was doing. But I think he hasn't found that way to be able to impose himself on a game as a 10 in a way that's going to get meaningful minutes there. And now with Dowman having come in, that's that emerging talent on the right-hand side and potentially the 10 spot that's taking that place. That to me makes it very difficult. Nwaneri feels like a player to me that, like an Ødegaard, needs some loans. Like, you need to almost Martin Ødegaard him and go and get, like Ødegaard had, 2 years somewhere. You almost need to take that hit. You need to get him on the 7-year deal and go, you're going to have 2 years at this spot, and we're going to let you really bed in with a manager who loves you. And unfortunately, Marseille was a bad loan deal for him. And I don't completely unanticipated. It wasn't a bad deal, I don't think, from the club. It's just, De Zerbi moving on caused that to be a bad deal in the end, and things with Habib Bye did not go well for him. But there's clearly a lack, at least anyway, of knowing what those next steps for him are, and that to me means that it's entirely open that he could move on, because he is nowhere near at this point, I don't think, someone who is going to impose himself upon the team. Whereas with MLS, I think if you look at what he was doing at the 10 of the last season, there's every chance that he has the performances in him to be able to do that. As well as the fact that he covering left back is very valuable in this side as well. So purely from that perspective, I look at the two of them, I'm like, MLS is the one I want to keep, and it maybe helps as well that MLS is so demonstrative, whereas Ethan is the exact opposite as well. But in terms of where the noise is coming from, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because some very, very good journalists and the likes of James McNicholas have come out and said it's not a thing. This is, the club aren't actively shopping him about, even though they might be swayed on him. And MLS himself doesn't want to go. So that's an interesting position to be in. But noise comes from somewhere, generally, right?
Well, actually, Gunner Blog did actually say he verified with Chelsea. So no one's saying who's doing the touting, but that something has been said there. So there's no smoke without fire. Something has been said by someone, but enough distance so everyone can deny. Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah, be a third party exploring. Are you interested in, and how much would you go to, and all that kind of stuff, I imagine. Yeah. But if it's not the players' camp, that's a good thing. If it's, and with regards to the club, I don't know, it's an interesting spot, isn't it? If they are just getting feelers on lots of different players as well and trying to assess where they are in the market with them, not a bad thing. And maybe the problem with that we have with MLS is just the fact that nobody wants the other twats that we want to get rid of, Nobody wants to pay us a fee for those guys that we talked about earlier. And that is problematic when you're trying to reinforce.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, everyone complains we're a bad selling club. No, we just have players that are on too high wages that their stock has fallen to sort of coin a phrase from another podcast. Why would you buy damaged goods like that? And if you do, you want to pay bottom prices. So it's whatever's left on the contract. It's often too high wages, hardly any time left on their contract, and then unwanted goods. So and no one's going to be able to sell those types of players. So if we do want to make any money on someone, it's going to be someone that is meaningful, that we like. But I mean, for me, look, Nwaneri, it's weird. Nwaneri makes more sense to do the loan thing. To one of the B clubs, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, one of those clubs, I think, that could take him on and do a good job with him. Maybe someone like Bournemouth. I think
he might need Ødegaard's Heerenveen is the problem. I think, like, if you look at the shape of loans that have been really successful for a lot of players, they've moved through the gears, right? Like, and does Nwaneri look like a player who's going to come into a good top half Premier League outfit and play all the time? I really don't think he does. I just don't think he does. I think at the moment he needs to establish himself as a player who's good enough that those clubs will want to buy him. And I think that player is going off on loan to the likes of an Eredivisie or a Ligue 1 as he went. Top club in Eredivisie or a Ligue 1 or even a Bundesliga team as well, like ESR had when he went out to Leipzig, or Reece Nelson had at Hoffenheim. But I think people think he's done a lot more than he has. I really do. I think he's had some lovely flash in the pan moments, but he hasn't like come in and just imposed himself or had a huge amount of game time. And then at Marseille, he didn't push on and get in that team. So do you really expect a player that couldn't push on and get in the Marseille team to push on and get into Bournemouth's team? I don't expect him to. And I don't want him going bottom half of the Premier League and into a team where he's getting Serge Gnabry either,
Yeah.
I want him to go to a club where he's going to be able to go and show off a little bit like he's an emerging
maybe that's where
he's 19 at the end of the day. He's 19. Yeah. Like, he doesn't have to go and play Premier League football to me. Like, let him get a bit of confidence and and learn his trade and get. What he desperately needs is that. How can you be pushed to perform all the time because you're trying to keep your place in the side, but you have the opportunity to keep that place in the side and be relied upon by teammates and build trust amongst a bunch of professional footballers. And that's the bit that he desperately needs, right? He can go and do that, I think, at a lot of different clubs that aren't necessarily Premier League teams.
Maybe that's where Fulham or Brentford or Brighton, who are always mid-table, even Palace, who are always not bottom half and not pushing for European places.
Who's really been doing that, going from a top club to those clubs on loan and doing well recently? Like, don't get me wrong, they used to. Jack Wilshere at Bolton, Romelu Lukaku at West Brom and at Everton. There were a bunch, right, that made their careers going out on loan to Premier League teams. But I think the Premier League's got so good now that if we're talking about genuine 18 and 19-year-olds, nobody goes on loan to them anymore. I mean, they just don't, because they're too ruthless, they're too cutthroat, they're too good. Like, the time was when we gave Jack Wilshere to Bolton. That was giving them a Rolls Royce of a player in technical terms, right? And they'd had a few, they'd had a Koches and Shawcans and stuff, but at that particular point in time, they didn't have a technician like him at all. They were shopping in the Johan Elmander world, like. But Bournemouth and Brighton have got some fucking phenomenal players in those sorts of positions. So, who are already there and who are incumbents, and he has to push past. And that's why I just see it as I just see it as maybe just stick him out on the continent somewhere where he's going to get a manager that's going to go, I'm going to play you week in, week out, because you're better than we could afford. And that's the bit that I don't think he's better than most Premier League teams could afford, unless you go down to Coventry and that anyone sort of bottom five in the league, at which point I worry about a player as effervescent as he is in a team that's not playing with the ball.
Exactly.
It's not an education you want to have.
It's a toughie, but MLS is a different story though. The thing with MLS, you got Rice, Bruno, Zubimendi, Ødegaard, Marino, Eza. Right, we'll take Nwaneri out of the equation. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if you add Nwaneri in there, 7. And MLS, that's 8 players for 3 spots. Okay, take Nwaneri out. So that's 7 players for 3 spots. And unless something like Real Madrid's interest in Zubimendi is triggered, and now that Rodri's going to Barcelona, do they tempt Arsenal with a big offer? That's there's only so many minutes that can go around, and this was really interesting that I heard on another pod. He played at left back and did really well that one season. And what did we do that summer? We bought in Hincapié. Towards the end of last season, came in centre midfield, did really well. Played a Champions League semi-final, played a Champions League final, and what we've gone and done, we've bought Bruno Guimaraes.
So there is a one in, one out there, technically.
Yeah, he's not replacing. Norgard is. If Norgard left and we didn't replace him, no one would notice.
Bruno G is the Norgard replacement, mate. What are you on about?
Anyway, okay, but still, it still makes it hard to get into that middle. So what sort of message is that sending to the player? Like, you've got to. This is the level you've got to achieve. As in, sorry, you're not never going to be the player we want you to be. I don't know. And look, for me, business is business. You've got to, if we have to sell someone and make some decent money, it's going to be someone we don't like. And this comes back to the question: how important is it to keep talent like MLS in terms of that Hale End connection? Go on. I'll get to age profiles in a second.
The one thing that you didn't cover was that I get you. I get the players he's up against, but they're all also like 28. Like they're almost all like Zubimendi is the youngest of them, other than MLS, and he's 26. So,
but how do we keep him on? But do we keep him on the bench though? Because he's still 19. He's not displacing any of these players as a starter.
But he's also 19, and I don't want to see him be Stephen Hughes and rush out the door because Manu Petit exists and become nobody because that wasn't the move that he needed to make. You know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. I there is a thing at the moment where people sort of expect as soon as there's a little drop in the ocean with any of the youngsters that they're like, well, they've got to push on from here. And like, it's got to be eternal forward progress. And eternal forward progress doesn't necessarily look like being in the team every week at the age of 19. It looks like continuing to develop, getting the experience of those around you, pushing on and inheriting a place a lot of the time. I don't know. And maybe that's just that's a world.
It's 5 starts a season. But it's 5 starts a season. I don't know how many games he started last season, but it wasn't a huge amount. He hardly played until towards the back end of the season. Is that enough for him? Is enough to keep him? I don't know. Yeah, me personally, I'd rather keep him. Of course, talent like that, the Hale End connection, the Arsenal connection, want to keep him. But also, I'm not so wedded that it's also business. It's about winning, and if we have to sell him and we continue winning, it's a tough pill to swallow. But sometimes you've got to do that. My issue is don't want him going to Chelsea, don't want him going to Man United. Is where he goes would be a bigger issue for me than if he goes. That to me is more of an issue. But again, if we're not, are we in charge of that? And it was interesting with the press conference yesterday, and Arteta said, look, he's a very emotional player. You see with his gestures on the pitch. I'm not going to talk about speculation. If there's speculation about our players, it's a good sign. That means our players attract attention and are doing a good job. But he didn't equivocally say he's not for sale. He's going nowhere. So I don't know. It just, I think this is one to watch. I think for the next, see how it goes. But yeah, I mean,
it just hurts me too much. It just hurts me too much.
Well, but what? But why? Do you support Arsenal or do you support the players? Why does that? And I'm intrigued because I'm maybe a bit more cold when it comes to
I support the Arsenal, but I forge bonds with players, right? That's a normal thing, I think. You forge bond. Similarly, I forge bond with players, and I will love them when they've left the Arsenal. A lot of them as well. The lights assess. That bond for me is not broken by him leaving the club. Even RVPs, and I'd still say made the right choice for his career, but
of course.
These things are, they're intrinsically linked. But certainly, for me, the idea of a Miles Lewis-Skelly not being with the Arsenal for years to come now is a really shit thing. I don't like the idea of it,
No, I get it. But if we're lifting the Premier League trophy, I think it might, at the end of next season or end of the season, it might.
Well, they're separate things. I can be broken-hearted about one and rejoiceful about the other. This is the broad spectrum of emotions that you might feel about different facets of life. That's what we like.
Maybe I'm just too cold.
It's what we like to call functioning human beings. But no, in all seriousness, I genuinely, they are separate emotions, and that emotion about him, I can even think it's the sensible choice. So I can see reasons for it. The one concern that I do have to say is I don't like the idea of not having some kind of inheritance in midfield, some kind of succession plan, effectively. That is something that concerns me slightly. And if you go back to a Jack Wilshere existed at a time when we had about 17 number 10s playing for Spain and France, But no, we had a congestion of players. Of course, Arsene Wenger's idea was to play 5 of them at any given time across the midfield, including a defensive midfield. And that wasn't a great idea. But maybe that's what we do. Maybe we've got real strength in midfield. We're struggling in defence. Mikel Merino, your time at centre back has come, and stick one of them in at right back, and we're good to go. Get MLS to work his trade out on the left hand side, like Wenger used to do to him, like he did to Nicholas Bentner. Why not?
All right, let's see. Look, one of the reasons we're having this conversation and why the rumours are out is because we did finally get Bruno G through the draw last week.
We got him through the draw, did we?
Got out through the door. Through the door. Sorry, and it's the first. It's the first transfer that's ever been completed when the clubs have not talked to each other, which is amazing. So look, anyway, so we got him for apparently 75 million, which is a large chunk of change for a 28-year-old midfielder. I know he turns 29 in autumn, but until then he's 28 because that's how it works. Look, are you pleased about this transfer? Do you think he will make a difference to our midfield? I mean, do you see him coming straight in as being one of our sort of primary players? So it's basically Bruno, Declan, and one other. Yeah, how do you see him fitting in?
Yeah, I mean, again, he brings a profile that has similarities to some, differences to others, and I think we'll really benefit from him. He's a top quality player. He's He's been one of the best central midfielders in the world for. He's probably been a top 10 central midfielder in the world since he arrived at Newcastle. I rate him that highly. I think he's absolutely superb. So, for me, he's head and shoulders above everybody outside of Rice in that midfield. And I don't say that lightly. Mikel Merino is incredible, but in terms of somebody that just I could trust playing almost any shirt number in the midfield as well. That's really, really, it's highly coveted stuff, right? So, yeah, I think it's great. And I think it's, I'm sure they haven't bought him just to cover a bit of a gap of Declan Rice being out, but it's a great summer to have got him, right? Because we are going to deal with, a little bit of time without Declan Rice, and he's a more than capable replacement for him. And then it just gives us yet more fantastic combinations in the centre midfield. So really, really good signing. And yeah, we should expect to get 3-4 top class years out of him.
Yeah, I'm gonna
have to warm up to him though. I'll tell you that. That feeling I've got towards Lewis Skelly is not. In fact, actually, towards almost any signing of all fucking time, I am genuinely like. Yeah, I'm going to have to watch you for a bit before I start liking you. And to be honest, it might be the first time he crashes in a goal or whatever it might be, or even just a crumbling tackle. But I think partly because we've been linked with him for quite such a long time as well, for like years and years.
Loads of years.
And it was actually signed for Newcastle. When he was linked to Newcastle, we were in for him then when he was at Lyon. It's always been about, and I can't help but just be like, I think you're a bit of a muppet. And I don't really, and you leave me a bit cold. There's just something about your shitty grin that I'm not cool with yet.
Get on Arsenal.com, watch the videos, that'll change your mind. But I think, Arteta turned down going for him a few years back, just thought he wasn't quite ready for us, which is a good thing because had we got him, then we might not have got Rice. So, it's funny how these things pan out. I mean, from a sort of from a perspective of how it feels like, it feels like he's going to bring passion, new energy to the team, a bit of freshness in terms of desire to win the big trophies. Not saying that we won't have that drive already, but I think that's part of the reason why he pushed so hard to come here is that opportunity to try and to be desperate to succeed, to win the big trophies. I mean, in terms of his profile, I think we all think he will allow us to play without Rice because of that energy, because he's a bit box to box, because of his combative nature. But actually, he's more akin to an Ødegaard, and he's going to offer more of what Ødegaard offers, maybe more than what Rice would offer, because So in terms of last season, he was top 5 in the Premier League for defensive line-breaking passes. He was top 5 for through balls. His line-breaking passes per 90, here's 7 per 90. Zubimendi 4.25, Rice 0.361, Ødegaard 7.21. So he comes across as a incisive, ambitious passer, always trying to hurt teams. But then also, it may be that he'll give the ball away a lot, but it's always in those attempting to try and push the ball through. So maybe he's not as safe as, say, Ødegaard is a bit safe. Zubimendi might be a bit safe. And he's good with the transition. And I think it will help with Saka. help with Gyökeres with balls to the right places to unlock deep passes to first-time balls in behind. He seems to be pass resistant, receives the balls well, excellent first touch in tight spaces, always available, turns away under pressure. So, but also defensively, he won, was it last season, 6.1 duels per 90, which is more than any Arsenal midfielder, 2.1 tackles per 90, again, amongst the top Arsenal midfielders. Only Rice made more recoveries, so he's got loads of great stats. He's a goal threat as well. He scored 9 goals, 5 assists last season for Newcastle, 30 goals, 25 assists in 153 league games. He's there on the edge of the box for cutbacks. He shoots from the edge of the box. So genuine end product from midfield, which we don't have. So I think he's going to be fantastic for us. But here's one surprising stat. And do you know how many red cards he's had in his career? Yeah, one, and that was in a League Cup game. I think, in his
that was
4
a
or
guess,
5 years.
I'm quite happy.
Well,
about
but
that.
I made it easy. Surprise! I made it easy by saying surprise stat because everyone's most thinking okay. Here's one thing. Because he was playing in Newcastle, and Newcastle seemed to have this ability to be able to kick 7 shades of shit out of the opposition and get away with it. He's going to pay the Arsenal tax. I think. I don't think he's going to get away with that. So he might have to be more mindful. Like in his 4 years at Newcastle, 10 yellows, 9 yellows, 11 yellows, 8 yellows, which, okay, so that's only one.
That's quite high. I mean, that's like one every 3 games.
Suspensions. That's 2 yellow card suspensions.
Yellow every 3 games still. That's quite a bit.
He's booked more than any midfielder. Averages 2.5 to 3 cards per 90. He typically concedes 2 to 2.5 fouls per 90. So, he's going to have to temper that a bit, but maybe we need a bit of that bastard. Maybe we've always been a bit too nice a team. We need a bit more of the likes of him, like Gabriel, like Hincapié, even Havertz. Just a bit of, when we had Henry, Bergkamp, Vieira, the back 4, they were brilliant players, but they were fucking hard. And they gave as good as they got, and Bergkamp got sent off plenty, and they took no shit. So I think it doesn't hurt. We're a bit nice in that regard. So it doesn't,
Are we?
It doesn't harm to have I think so. Yeah,
I don't think we are.
So.
I think we're a bunch of bastards a lot of the time. To be honest,
well, I don't.
We
think
watch a different Arsenal at times.
Oh, no, Ødegaard is quite nice. Saka is a nice.
Oh, come on
guy.
now! Don't look at Martin Ødegaard for God's sake! Like, it's like
okay, even Declan Rice.
It's like going. The schoolroom's on fire, but Declan over there with his multiple A stars is still, still being a nice little dickhead at the front of the class.
But they're not Enzo Fernandez and not Bruno Guerrero. They're not that. No. Look, and I don't want them to be.
I accept that. I accept that. Do you know, actually, one of them is as well.
Yeah.
Bruno does come with one of those dickhead haircuts, doesn't he? Like Enzo Fernandez has got as well. Do you know what I mean? Like the players who have those dickhead haircuts that then they are dickheads. And I think it's a bit of that, It's like Garnacho. I could never have him at the Arsenal. Dickhead haircut. Cole Palmer as well. Like, bunch of them. We don't really have them at the Arsenal. I'm a bit like, we have got one of them with a dickhead haircut now. So that, anyway, it's fine. I'm gonna like him at some point, right? This is gonna be like the Gyökeres thing, where it took me a long time to believe that he could play number 9 for the Arsenal.
I think it'll be a lot quicker.
This season's storyline with me is: can I learn to love? Oh no, I think he's good enough by a mile. I think he's good enough to play for anyone. I don't think he's likable enough for me to want to watch him and enjoy him. That's all.
Well, watch the interviews on Arsenal.com. He's fine. Are you concerned at all about age? 28. In his just about towards the middle end of his prime.
Yeah, you just should buy him for 2 or 3 years, right? But 25 mil a season. If you get 3 good years, yeah, but 25 mil a season for 3 good years. So if you get if you amortize the transfer fee, you can amortize value, right? And you can say how much value do you get out of a player and how much you're paying per year. Would I pay 25 mil? Would you buy someone for 25 million on a 1-year contract 3 times over that's as good as Bruno Guimaraes? Fuck yeah, you would. So Like, no bother. It's all good. And, you might even get a fourth or a fifth out of him. Who bloody knows? But either way, I know looking at him, you absolutely know with Bruno Guimaraes, you're going to get 3-4 top class years out of him. So no real concerns there at all. And it's a position as well that he's playing where you do get those, those quality years into the early 30s. They don't drop off a cliff like a winger. If it was a winger and he was 28, I'm a bit more concerned, because that's when you start to see that value drop. The modern world of the new winger is that, really past the point of about 27, you start seeing them traject downwards, right? You don't have that with a certain midfielder.
Yeah, and he's Premier League proven. He's a key Brazil international. And look, Fernandinho joined Man City when he was 28, won 13 trophies and 5 league titles. Samuel Eto'o joined Inter when he was 28, won the treble. Pavel Nedved joined Juventus when he was 28, won 2 league titles and the most stupid Ballon d'Or ever. George Weah joined Milan when he was 28, won 2 league titles and a Ballon d'Or. And David Villa joined Barca when he was 28, won 2 league titles and a Champions League. So, look, yeah, you're right. I think in that position, he's in his prime, prim proven. His stats stack up. Yeah, I think he's a great addition, and it's the sort of player we need. And he improves us. He does, bring that midfield up to another level. Gives us a lot of options that we're missing. So I think he's going to be a superb signing, and you're gonna have the Guimaraes tattoo before the end of the season. I know it. So, talking of Brazilians, yesterday there was news about. Rumours, it's Turkey. It's hard to know what's true and what's not. Martinelli to Galatasaray, 45 million. Yeah, I mean, but what do you think? I mean, take the money, too little, keep him.
It's like we're talking about Gabriel Martinelli and not about nether regions Mohicans. But anyway, so. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's much hype around this, does it? It feels like Galatasaray are making a move for a player that isn't going to agitate to go there. Apparently, there's stories that he expects that if he were to go, it would be to a top league. Again, there's probably a little bit of us getting third parties to go sound people out, see if they're interested in an offer. And it's quite clear that the amount of money probably isn't the right amount. I don't feel like that's an amount that makes him budge. Do you? I think that's been the common consensus, is that, regardless of how you feel about Gabriel Martinelli, he started left wing for Brazil a bunch of times at the World Cup. You don't get that player for less money than some idiots have paid for Chelsea's fifth choice centre midfielder.
The trouble is, and again, this is Arsenal, he's on 190k per week. Okay, so the issue is not the transfer fee; it's the wages. It's that kills people. So almost 200k per week. Who that cuts out 90% of all clubs. Who can potentially buy it. And he said he wants to go to a top league or a top club. Who's buying? Where's the market? Barca aren't going to be buying.
Doesn't mean you let the player go. It doesn't mean you let the player go, though, right? Because you still need to be able to go out and replace that player, etc. And if you don't think that's going to move the needle on being able to do so, then, you don't. But I just don't think it's enough money for him, I think, is the key thing. But the fact the player...
I'd want more.
The noises coming out of the players' camp being, we're not really interested in this move, makes it okay, well, move on. Let's just move on with the world. This clearly isn't a deal that's going to happen. And, off you go.
But if we were to sell him, I wouldn't think it's more than 50, 55, just because, people reference Savinho, 70 million potentially to Spurs, but he's most probably on half that. And you, as you said, you can amortize the fee, but wages come out monthly, and that hits the expense, of the club, and that's more impactful. So, this comparing of transfer fees for similar players and blah blah blah, it's a non-starter, because there's so much more to it and things like that. Because as I said, the wages is always a bigger. And like I said, he wants to go to another club. Who's going? Barca aren't going to go for him. Bayern Munich aren't going for him. Real Madrid aren't going for him. None of the big Premier League clubs are going for him. The only one you could see in Premier League maybe going to, would be Newcastle potentially, or Aston Villa, something like that. But I mean, look, I'm not. Look, I'd only sell if we had a replacement lined up, and that's another story. But yeah, and he's a hard one, because every season we have the conversation about our left-hand side, and we clearly want to improve our left-hand side. I mean, we were going for Vinny Jr. for crying out loud. Would have been a massive upgrade. And it's I don't know. Is it a bit of familiarity breeds contempt with Martinelli? Are we just a bit bored of Martinelli? We know what we're getting. It's the same all the time. Even if we get someone whose stats are the same, just something different, just for us to see something different. So that desire maybe to move him on is more just, a change is something, is it could be a good thing irrespective of the outcome.
I think, look, we were just clearly willing to talk about him. And yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it, with Martinelli? The thing is, you do need a replacement because he brings tremendous value in a lot of games. He scored 6 goals in the Champions League last season. He was a pretty key player at times. And, he fits what we do so well and is such a fantastic worker that, you need to replace him. So if you're not going to be commanding a fee that allows you to go and do that, then you don't. What is interesting, and it's interesting that you've not tagged it on, but do you know the stories that have been coming out today with Galatasaray?
Oh, Osimhen. I saw something about Osimhen.
But also that Nwaneri was discussed as well, actually. So Nwaneri apparently was discussed with Galatasaray too, which I can only feel would be more of a loan, but I don't know. But apparently that has been discussed with them. And yeah, Victor Osimhen being mentioned as well. So it's just sort of interesting to think that there could be a world where there could be a deal that happens where there's a Victor Osimhen involved in it, for instance. Now that would be really interesting for me. Super interesting, because talk about 27-year-olds that can do a bit of damage. Victor Osimhen will certainly be one of them. So, if he were to go for 35 million or 38 million or whatever it was mentioned, 38 million I think it was, and you get a loan deal for Nwaneri and Victor Osimhen coming the other way for like a 40 million, for instance, do it, do the job. So it's all about, for me, it's just all about the value exchange, is what you're getting, right? And I still think a Victor Osimhen for us would do a fantastic job. I think the problem that we have there is we probably have we have other players that are higher up the list at the moment that we're trying to get hold of, and if we can't get them, then he's probably further down the list, and at that point that deal might not be there anymore. But it's an interesting one to me. I'd be delighted with something like that. Similarly as well, if you could go and take a Martinelli to anybody and they give you 70 million, and that 70 million gets instantly reinvested into a Barcola, then you're up for it, right? But in isolation, the Martinelli deal doesn't seem like a good one to me, and I don't think you let the player walk without somebody coming in that's of value to the team, because at the moment, individually, he still delivers value for me in the Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, no, that number is that number is too low. It's not that I would sell him at that price, but for another 10 on top, it wouldn't surprise me. But and look, you mentioned 6 non-penalty goals last year in the Champions League, which is actually elite, because only Mbappe, Kane, Kvaratskhelia, and Haaland scored more at a better rate, than him. His output is down. So last season, he had 1 goal in 30 appearances. However, the context of that is, and there was a really good article by Lewis Ambrose on this, he only made 11 starts and played just over 1,000 minutes. 75% of those starting minutes were against top half teams. 55% were away versus top half teams. So he barely played at home, barely got any rhythm, barely played any favourable fixtures, unlike Gyökeres, who was, maybe had a bit more of that. So it's sometimes a bit hard. His finishing has sort of basically remained the same, 2.4 shots per 90, same as previous season, 5 XG, so last season was a bit of an anomaly, so he's an average finisher, not a bad one, And then the chances he's had in terms of who he's played with, and we always talked about that trio of Madueke, Gyökeres, and Martinelli just not working. When he had good seasons, he had Zinchenko and Saka and Jesus and Ødegaard all feeding that left hand side a bit better. Whereas this season, or the league season just gone, that's all gone. We are so right hand side biased that he's not getting those chances. So maybe, this season, maybe with Guimaraes, maybe offering a bit more. Maybe we try and go a bit more left hand side. you know, if Calafiori can stay more fit, you know, Havertz is fit, maybe, you know, he can be unlocked a bit more. So like, he's only 25, he's still very fast. Yeah, he's still got something there. I think it's just the familiarity breeds contempt, and he's had a bit of a drop off, and so therefore we just want change. And sometimes change for change's sake is sometimes good. But I think it has to be at the right price. I'm not sure the Osman deal is out because it doesn't solve our left-hand side problem unless you push Eze out there. So our left-hand side is Eze and Tzolis and maybe Madueke, but don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. Rumours out of Turkey are always a bit odd. And I'm not too sure.
It seems to have enough momentum that it's definitely been a thing. I think it's just a question of
maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's moving forward in any way, which, you know, so for me feels like not a bad thing. And regards Martinelli, I will say I don't think Martinelli's dropped off, and I think the context is really handy for Interpreted last season because, as you say, in the league, he like 1,000 minutes is like 11 games, right? You know, it's not a lot of football actually, but I don't think he's dropped off. I think he just hasn't pushed on, and I think that's the story of Gabriel Martinelli at the Arsenal. Is that he's still the Gabriel Martinelli he was in Mikel's first season. I don't think he's actually any different. I think he's playing less because ultimately he hasn't pushed on. And I do think he looks like a player to me that isn't really going to push on anywhere he goes, if I'm honest. He kind of feels like a player that just, for whatever reason, there's a limitation there. And it's a shame because he's a great athlete. He's very good technically. I think he's a poor decision maker. I think it's as simple as that. And he just, now, in the way that we play as well, he's asked to make a lot more decisions. And when we played more as a transitional team at one point, it really benefited him. Because, you know, your decisions are much easier when you're spending 3-4 seconds sprinting with a ball with a bit of green grass in front of you. Is the really simplistic way of putting it. But certainly, you know, look at a Gervinho and the way he played in a transitional team versus a team that had the ball all the time. You know, decision makers, mate, decision makers.
So do we have to look at Gervinho?
I'd maintain there was a phenomenal footballer in there, you know, but nonetheless, you know, so you know, I think, unfortunately, I don't see that getting any better. But I think if you don't expect it to get any better, I've been in a really good place about how I feel about Gabriel Martinelli for a while because I don't expect it to get any better. Yes, I'd like him to be upgraded. However, individually, he delivers loads of value still. He's still a good asset. You just, you know, ultimately, I think there is a bit of a cap as well. The idea that some people have got that he'd be like an £80 million player is fucking ridiculous. Like he's a 50, 60 million pound player because the market's bonkers. Like that's the way it is. That's, you know, the market's bonkers. So he is definitely worth a lot more cash than has been offered. But at the same time, I think the problem that we've got is, like so often, because he's exposed that I don't think he has much of an upside, the teams that are after him are Turkish. There's probably going to be some Arab club fancies him. And they're going to be teams just outside of the top four in the big leagues that then can't afford him, right? So, you know, or it's going to be Italy. And you just have to strike luck with Italy because they've got like £250 million a year, you know, transfers in them out the Premier League a year in them, you know, and after that point, they're out of cash, you know, like that's the way that Italy is, unfortunately. So, you know, that's kind of the way that I see it with Gabs is that you wait until something decent comes along for him. By all means, you let him go at that point. But if he sticks around, I'm not resenting him. It's not like Gabriel Jesus, where he's genuine decline, or Zinchenko, where for some reason he just stopped being the player he was overnight. You know, or the tactical system had to be spot on for him to be effective in it. He's not a dead weight. He is a good football player who is a good asset to this football team. And that's the main point I just want to land on with him is to go, we shouldn't be in a position of trying to push him out the door or as fans being disappointed if he doesn't leave.
No, I get that. I guess it's where we want to go to. And like I said, we went for Vinny Jr. We want to improve the left-hand side. We want to go to the next level. We want to be dominating. And will he take us there? But yeah, unless there is a viable alternative, then no, you keep him. But it's been a strange couple of days in terms of transfer rumours. I mean, there was the Romero from Spurs stuff, and thankfully that was shut down pretty quickly, and he's going to I think as a footballer he might be all right, but he's a complete twit. So and also he's gone to the perfect place for him under Simeone at Atletico Madrid. Then there was Neto from Chelsea, which would be our annual purchase of a Chelsea cast off. But so there's two things. One, City are looking at him, and before he went to Chelsea, we were sort of interested in, but he was a bit injury prone.
No, we were super interested in him for about 3 windows. I think it's just he just kept on coming off the back of some kind of crappy injury, didn't he? I think if he'd never got injured, I think he was an Arsenal player, like 100%.
But he's an absolute dick, and we have to. Okay, we've got Bruno. But Romero and Neto, that would be certainly breaking the no dickheads policy. And it's interesting, City are going for Neto and now Fernandes from Chelsea because they need to increase their prick quota, because now that Silva's gone to Madrid, they need, they haven't got enough idiots in that team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when you look around the league, actually, is there anybody that's been signed that you're kind of jealous of a little bit?
I would have liked Rodgers. I think Rodgers could have done decent, and I can understand why we didn't do it, and stuff like that. So yeah, Rodgers is the one. Is the one, I think. He just got stupid and all the rest of it. But other than that, not at the moment. And yeah, I've not seen anything. I've not been paying too much attention to it. But there's no one saying, "Oh, I wish." Other than Rodgers, there's no one saying, "Oh, I wish we'd have got him," because there isn't anyone out there. There isn't. It would have been interesting to see what happened with Krupi had he not got injured. Maybe that's one we go back for in the winter. Yeah. I mean, look, we didn't get Vinny, and we had to go for it. And whatever, if we were used or not, even if we were being used, the fact that we're in the conversation, the fact that actually it got serious, the fact that it was an opportunity, we had to go for it. Whatever. But I don't think we should then, and we've got the money, but I don't think we should just burn that money on just anyone. So even Barkler at that price, ridiculous. Alvarez, I'm not sold, partly because he just doesn't want to come here. He wants to go to Barcelona and stuff like that. So, things like that. So maybe with the Krupi, you wait until January and then you go from in January. But it would have been interesting to see what happened to him, because there was talk with him going to Tottenham, and that would have pissed me right off. So maybe he's one that maybe we look at. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I can't see, unless Barkler's price comes down. I don't know. Maybe we I don't know what's happening with Liverpool. He seems a strange buy for Liverpool because they need midfielders and defenders. To buy another tricky winger seems a bit odd. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, where do you land on that? Do you think we're going to do any more business? I mean, there's the right back, right centre back, the Konza stuff. Apparently, we're going back in for. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen rest of the transfer window?
Yeah, I think there's a very high chance that we do some more business, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it, as to who it could possibly be? I mean, just I suppose the jealousy for me very early on was in the was probably surprising to some, was the Anthony Gordon deal. Where I've always fancied him for us, but and it still feels like, you'd love to see that superstar for sure. But I think, kind of much to your point, really, you don't have to push yourself for the superstar. It was interesting, actually. I was listening to Jamie Carragher today on the Football Ramble, which is not something I was expecting him to turn up on, but he did a nice little episode with them, and he was talking actually about how United have moved past trying to sign the superstar all the time, and they're having a quietly, a very Michael Carrick kind of window, actually, and maybe that's his influence. Whereas on the other hand, he's very concerned about Liverpool kind of being obsessed by the superstar now. What they did last season with Isaac and Ekiteke and the other big signing, Averts. And then this season, again, it feeling like where you go for the Barkler and you're looking for those, you're sort of looking for loads of £80 million signings because they must be the best players in the world, right? And I think that's what the fan base at the Arsenal are looking for a little bit. I think we are sort of going, well, now you've got to go and sign this huge world-class player. But I appreciated his point that when you force it too much, you just end up in that position that United were in for quite a while, where you end up with a few kind of, square pegs, round holes, not really, getting the best out of players, not really having a plan. And I think Vinny for me was a really interesting one. I've been a little bit, not cold, because it's exciting. The idea of a Vinny's exciting, right? But I think I've been a little bit like I was about Mesut Ozil when he joined the Arsenal, and I was never anywhere near as enthused as everybody else was about him. I just look at him and go, I think he helps us slightly differently to Mesut Ozil at that time. I think he helps us specifically where we're a bit weak. I get that. But I just don't necessarily think that Vinny Jr. at the Arsenal in any way makes sense to me in terms of Vinny Jr. and an Arteta team and what we ask of our players and pressing and stuff like that, out of possession play. And I always just worry.
That's what you got the other 10. That's what you got the other 10 players for.
Yeah, but people say this, and Cristiano Ronaldo in various teams now bringing him down because his inability to be able to play off the ball.
Yeah, I know, but he's 100 years old. That's fine.
But there's loads of other examples as well of players. Just there's a reason that Matt Letizia did not play for a top club, and I know that people always give it large about his loyalty and shit. Absolute bollocks. He'd have gone to a big club if they'd have properly gone after him. They properly didn't, because everybody had concerns about the fact he was a fat bloke who wandered around the pitch very slowly and then scored a bunch of worldies and put in some beautiful passes. Wonderful technician, but he wasn't an athlete in any way, right? He didn't work hard. Similarly as well, I worry about a player that just doesn't fit the tactical identity. And it is tough to try and get somebody to fit that tactical identity and then have those things that we're missing. But I still think there's a profile in between the two, potentially. And that's the bit. So would I have been delighted for us to sign Vinny? Yes. Would I have been really excited? Yes. Absolutely. I'm not taking away from that. Just at the same time, I'm slightly sanguine about it, where I go, I'm not resentful of the fact that we didn't get a hold of him, and I don't feel like we have to push for an 80 million. And I do feel like we can be looking at a bunch of Tzolises, of guys that have shown production elsewhere, that we can go out and pick up for the 30 to 40 million, and we can potentially look to push on, especially in a team where there are actual stars for them to play alongside.
Yeah, I think the other player to talk of was Yildiz at Juve, but he seems to be tied to Juve. I think it's that we're missing that X factor sometimes. We're always on the margins, and we just need who's going to be the one that just gets the ball, takes the ball by the scruff of the neck and scores that goal. Eze can do it, but how often does he do it? How often is he on the pitch to do it? And we need that. I think we just need that X factor to go to the next level. We are fantastic defensively, with or without Saliba and whatever. We're great in midfield, but it's just as an attacking, we do not have that elite attacking threat. We've got very good players, but we won loads of games 1-0 last season, and we're playing on those margins, and we relied on our defence, and we can't, especially now that Saliba won't be there for 3-4 months. We need to be winning games 2-0, 3-0. Take things out of the equation. The problem last year, again, players were staying on longer than need to be because every game was so fucking tight. It was so tense and so stressful, and we never took the tension out of games because we weren't putting the ball in the back of net often enough. Now, is that because we didn't create enough chances? Is that because we didn't have someone that would just run around 10 players and bang one in? Is it that we don't have that speed elite left winger, someone to match up with Saka on the right hand side? Is it because of injury? Loads of things, and I think that's maybe it's that having that X factor player that I think Vinny might do. But you're right, I don't think there is, as I said, there are players out there, but there's uncertainty around them. Yildiz, has he got an injured knee? Apparently, he's got tendonitis on the knee. Apparently, I don't know. Barkla, I saw him in the World Cup. Anytime he came against a low block, didn't do very much. Looks great, but
No,
whatever.
I had a similar feeling about Barkla as well. I wasn't that excited by him because of the precisely the same thing. You're just like, well, to be honest, if I'm honest, he looks a little bit Martinelli in profile, but just that he executes it better.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. So, and that's where that changed things, something different. But who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not convinced we make any changes in the forward department. The one place I think we have to is get cover at right back, right centre back. I don't mind the Konza thing. I know it's expensive, but 28 in his prime as a centre back, Premier League proven. You know, we get him. There's plenty of minutes to go around. White has one more season at the Arsenal, and then he goes next season, and Konza's there. 60 million. I don't want us to bend over and take one, but I just think just pay the money and get it done.
I think I'm more on the side of I want to see a real kind of emerging right back come in. I want to see someone who can be far more in that 30-40 million pounds, not that proven sort of right back that is gonna sit behind a Jury and Timber and sort of level almost with a Ben White and let Ben White phase himself out a little bit. I want to see that kind of player, which the thing is 30-40 million pounds, you can go out and get like the best right back in Italy that's like 23 years old for that, you know what I mean? Like, but it's that sort of move that I was looking for. I think the Konza one I find uninspiring because it's like I think there's a real quality to him. Funny enough, it's a little bit like when we brought Martin Keown back from Villa, actually. Like, we had two great centre-halves, and then you had a third one that bit of different story because it disappeared as well, and he played midfield as well. But nonetheless, the midfield in the way that Konza can play right back, we brought him in for his versatility under George, right? He came in and played midfield a bit, and then eventually he becomes, a fantastic centre-half for us for God knows how long. There's something about that signing of Konza, it's just not very inspiring to me. Like, I'm not waiting to find out who he is. I know he is. He's really good, but he's still not good enough to be in the starting 11. And that's like £60 million for that feels very uninspired.
But he's not starting 11 when Saliba's there. But
no, that's what I mean. The ideal. He's never going to be in the first 11, right? It's just very unexciting in that respect. He's in the squad. He's not in the first 11. And centre half is just, and I know you can say, well, he also plays right back. He's not a good right back. He's a solid right back.
Yeah, but remember who we're relying on at right back.
But Ben White is a solid right back. Ben White is a solid right back.
No, but we're. But
I think Meslier is about as good as what I want is the player who can. In particular, the thing that worries me about Konza as a right back for us is he can't get himself up the pitch. He can't do anything. So if you are relying on him for 3-4 games at right back, it's a bit like Meslier to me. With both of them, you lose it all going forward. You get nothing out of them going forward. So the only player, I want a proper right back to come in to be we can play you when we don't have Timber and when we don't have White, and you can push White out of the squad, and you can then be a successor for Timber, even whether that works out or not. But the main thing being, you are able to get up and down the pitch. You're able to be a proper right back, not be a centre half playing at right back. Because I don't think we need more centre halves either.
No, I know. I understand that right back bit, and as well, I understand it. I think was it Brown from Germany. Okay, he's gone to Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Obviously, he would have been potential. I think there's Fresneda they're talking about from Sporting. I think there is the Italian one, Fratesi. I can't remember his name, but anyway, I'm just concerned about the Saliba thing. That if we're relying on Mosquera and potentially Timber as our right centre back until Christmas, because that wouldn't surprise me. Champions League in the league. Yeah, I don't think a young up and coming right back does anything for us and keeps us where we want to be,
I think you're going to get a right back who's played. Again, you mentioned Nathaniel Brown, right? You're talking about that kind of profile, the 30-40 million pounds guy who's played like he has, like 80 to 100, 120 Bundesliga games or something. And you get those players in Italy and in Germany and in the Netherlands or whatever. That they are about. You can go and sign those guys. Like I don't know. I just feel like for some reason it's the profile specifically. I guess Konza just worries me I do not want to see him at right back, and I'm less concerned about centre half. Weirdly, because you have got you've got a plethora of guys that can play. Hincapié and Calafiori. I know you don't like them being on the right when they're left-footed and all that kind of stuff, but they can play there. They can still play there. There's been eons and eons of two right-footed centre-halves playing together in the Premier League. I'm pretty sure two left-footed centre-halves can play together as well. You know what I mean? It's not that difficult. So, I don't know. It's more, for me, the main concern is we have one player who's a competent right-back right now who can offer anything going forward. And then there's Theo Julien behind. But Theo Julien is a converted... number 10, who is absolutely nowhere near it because he only started playing at right back last season.
No, of course.
Although having said that, Miles Lewis-Skelly only started playing at left back a few months before he made his first team debut there. So maybe I'm an absolute idiot, and I do love Theo Julien, but
I tell you, and also Marley Salmon. I mean, he's looked quite nice in pre-season, but he's again 16 for a centre back. He's too light. He needs to go out. Get on the roids and bulk out. And
that Barcelona lad would disagree with you, wouldn't he? Jesus Christ. That was the story of the summer for me. True. I've not really kept my eye on Barcelona for a few years, and you just all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, they've produced a giant in Catalan terms. It's mental. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. He's good, but Salmon's a few years away from being able to sort of step into it, but we'll see. Look, we'll last 10 minutes. We'll just get onto the Charity Shield, and then we'll call it a day. But before we do that, just a quick favour: if you're enjoying the podcast, nice little 5-star rating and the subscribe on the podcast apps, on your YouTube channel, on Spotify and Apple is much appreciated. At the Grove AFC, helps with the algorithms, helps with listener numbers, and thank you if you've done it. And if you haven't, please go ahead and do it. It takes 2 minutes, and we appreciate it, and we do notice it. So, my usual reminder, and I do it every week because it seems to make a difference because we notice the subscriber numbers go up. So appreciate you. And for the one person that unsubscribed, as Liam Nielsen said, I will find you. Right. Anyway, so there we go. I was meant to, in the prep, get the voice recording of that and put it in, but ran out of time. Right. Anyway, so on to the Charity Shield. We play Man City in a sort of semi-serious game at the Principality Stadium, 3:00 on Sunday in Cardiff, because Wembley is booked up for a concert. I think it's the weekend or some other nonsense band. Anyway, so it seems to be the traditional season opener, bit of a showpiece event, but is ultimately still a friendly. We'll have 3/4 of the stadium. And despite it being against 115 FC, I think everyone will be looking at us, looking for us to fail, looking to find every opportunity to mock us, shoot us down. I think as Arsenal winning the league and the celebrations that we saw afterwards really pissed a lot of people off from a jealousy, envy point of view. And it shone a very bright light onto their own team's mediocrity and deficiencies. So, I don't know, how do you feel about the Charity Shield? Does it matter? Is it important? Is it pre-season or bigger than pre-season?
Oh, just the eternal question, as it has been for at least 30 years that I remember. It's both a friendly and it's a competition. It sort of half depends on who's in it, doesn't it? I think that's the way I feel about the Charity Shield. It's like the best two teams in the country. So when it was like Arsenal and United for years, it was a big deal, right? And then when it's like the FA Cup was won by some shithouse, you don't really give a crap. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of how it works, I think. So, yeah, in this particular one, because it is Arsenal City, I think it's meaningful, That's just always the way I've kind of felt about it. So, yeah, same again. And, yeah, looking forward to it. I'd be looking forward to it more if I wasn't in a position where I've got my ticket and have absolutely no fucking idea how I'm getting there. Because every single train out of London is booked by a mile and was booked before I got my ticket. I didn't think to check that, and I'm 2 hours away from London in the first place. So even getting back then is a bit of a nightmare, and I'll probably have to get a hotel. I'd sort of prep myself for that. I haven't prepped myself for the chance that I might not be able to get in and out of Wales in a day. So yeah, we're gonna see whether I'm actually in attendance or not. But it'll be I would love to be there, because I've actually never been to a Charity Shield. It'd be my first ever one. I've just never, right. Partly because I fucking hate Wembley. So I never bothered going to Wembley. I'm like, I'll go for a meaningful game. I'm not going for that shit. But I love the Millennium Stadium. It's one of my favourite stadiums in the world. I've been there a bunch of times. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to the Millennium again. Brilliant. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Just need to get there.
And I do think it's somewhat meaningful. I think the way that you set out your stall for the season, I think it will be like every Charity Shield always is. It will be, pitched somewhere between a friendly and a proper game. There'll be a couple of moments in it. A couple of players will impress, and overall, everybody will have forgotten about it a week later. That's what it is, right? But for a week, I think it's got a little bit of meaning to it. And, I do think our Charity Shield win over City was a meaningful one when it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it's the FA Cup winner or the person coming in second to do it over the champions. But yeah, and also it's like it's sort of a trophy, isn't a trophy. You have that trophy sensation without it really being a proper trophy. So I think it gives you that nice winning feeling. I mean, Arteta's calling it a final. Gyökeres was saying he wants to win. It's a trophy, not a friendly. I'm going to the game. I did book my train well in, but I mean, I was fortunate enough. I knew I was going to go, so I booked my train like 2 months ago, sort of thing. And then So
lucky you, Mr. Organised, as per bloody usual, eh? Yeah. I've got my train. I've got my own train. Nobody else is even on my train. I'm just driving it all the way there. Well, I've just sorted out. Me and Normie, we're just on a train together. We're just driving it. That's it.
So sorry about that. So I'll be there. It'll be good. We're going to be there as champions. So it's going to be the first time in a stadium, in a domestic stadium, chanting champions. Yeah, as I said in the intro, City, despite offering, I think it was about 20 tickets per season ticket holder or whatever, we practically got 3/4 of the ground. So it's going to be like a home ground, home game. Because they couldn't take up their full allocation. Not looking forward to a repeat of the Carabao Cup final or people over-indexing the results either way, win or lose. But I think it would be nice to win. It's always nice to win, be fun. Good to always beat City. Ultimately, as you said, meaningless. Yeah, we've won in the past, meant nothing. We've lost in the past, meant nothing. We obviously want to go and win, but I think you will see a game that reflects Coventry Friday is the most important thing. So, but I mean, with that game, what sort of lineup do you think we're going to have? I know you haven't paid a huge. Well, you've seen the highlights of the.
I've looked at all the lineups and watched the highlights. But,
what sort of lineup do you reckon?
What
sort of lineup do you see it being?
Oh, apologies, mate. I had you cutting in and out. I don't know if that was my side or yours, but sorry. I thought you'd finished and then it's gone all over the place.
No, gone. Yeah. We're all good. Carry on.
Are we? All right, sweet. So, I don't know. Probably, I probably wouldn't expect to see that much different aside to the last one that played, really. But I in goal, I mean, it would be nice to see Raya, if I'm completely honest, but I have a feeling it won't be. I have a feeling it will be another cup goalkeeper experience. Defense-wise, I think we will see Marley Salmon play again. I don't think much is going to change. Okay. I think midfield is probably going to be Bruno is probably going to be MLS again. I think it feels like he'll just kind of go out with the guys that have played most of the pre-season, and maybe we see a couple of changes that we haven't seen previously. But mainly, I'd be expecting stuff to be coming off the subs bench. But I don't know. It's a hard one. I suppose in the run-up to the kick-off of the Premier League, maybe you do swap out the centre-half, and that's maybe the one big change that you make, really. And you just have a back four that's made up fully of people that are in their 20s.
Yeah, I would say Raya, because Raya played the whole of the second half against Como. Yeah, I think he did. Raya played second half. I think White, Mosquera, Big G, Calafiori, Ødegaard, MLS. I think Bruno's only played a half, so I think Havertz, because he played majority of pre-season. Dowman, Gyökeres, Tzolis. I think we'll make do with a 75% team, see what happens, make plenty of subs. I think, we might give like the likes of Saka, the likes of Eze, the likes of Rice, Madueke, maybe second half minutes, get them a run out before the Coventry game. I think that's pretty. Hincapié will come on at some point, I reckon. We got options, but I don't think we're going to be relying on Jesus or Vieira or Nelson. I think we're going to have a proper squad, but it might be the secondary players primarily starting, and some of the primary players may come on later. So, but I think all about Cov. And as far as City goes, their pre-season, okay, they drew 1-1 with Inter, they beat K-League All-Stars, and then they beat Atletico Madrid. But they've been playing, I think their last game against Atletico Madrid, it was Guardiola, Reis, Diaz, Nunez, Reinders, Kovacic, Savinho, Foden, Semenyo, Marmoush, Donnarumma, and even then the subs were Rico Lewis, Gonzalez, Mubama, Ait-Nouri, and then Claudio Echeverri. So, they're not playing. Haaland isn't there. Don't know what's happening with Rodri. Yeah, so they've got a bit of a mix and match team, secondary players. Doku wasn't there, so I don't know what sort of team that they're going to put out. I mean, in terms of transfers, they bought Elliot Anderson. He's only just come back with the England lot. Other than that, they've bought a couple of some guy from Troy. They bought Monga from Leicester. A couple of goalkeepers, and then they've had Trafford leave, Akanji leave, Ake leave, Silva leave, Stones leave. And even then, some of the players that they've bought, they've sent out on loan. So they're not going to be great. I don't suggest in terms of their players. I think Haaland might come on at some point, but they're not going to be fully fit. So how do you think this one is going to pan out? What do you think? What's your prediction? I've said the same, 1-1 and penalties.
Yeah, I don't know how we get there.
Do you have a full-time score?
Let's go 2-2 just to be different.
Penalties, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. 2-2 and pens, yeah. And who's winning on penalties?
Let's say it's the Arsenal. Why not? Go on. I mean, we're shy to predicting against ourselves, aren't we? We should have started this podcast in 2017. We'd have actually had differentials then. Because then I actually would have been like, we're getting done 3-0.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, no, I've predicted against ourselves a couple of times, but no, I'm with you. I think a draw, just because it's just the state of both clubs and squads and teams, and then win on pens. But we'll go for it, and we'll enjoy a penalty shootout for a change. Right, there we go. Thank you, Jamie. About what I expected. 100 minutes. So appreciate you being on, and our podcasting season has started. So let's hope for many more entertaining pods. Right. Next pod will be it will be after the Charity Shield, most probably Monday, and then we're going to do a season preview pod, get our collective crystal balls out and make some bold and crappy predictions. We'll do a Coventry preview, and then before you know it, we'll be back into the regular schedule of post-match reviews, hot off the pitch, live pods, pre-match previews, plus some new stuff that I'm working on that I'll tell you about in due course. So plenty of content on its way for you to enjoy. And as I said, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, like, comment, blah, 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 at The Grove AFC on all the channels, all the socials, and all that jazz. And there we go. So thank you, Jamie, and thank you for listening. And at least we at the Grove Podcast are ready for the new season, even though Arsenal aren't. So until the next time, come on, you Gunners.